Hello, welcome to today's webcast on Microsoft Power BI. We'll be covering the latest offering with Power BI, as well as the mobile and personal dashboard functionality. My name is Ahmed Nateg. I'm a consultant with Thorogood, and I've mainly worked with the Microsoft BI stack, amongst other technologies. I'm joined by my colleague Henrietta Forsen, who's also a consultant, and we're both joining today's webcast from our Ealing office in London. I'll be talking about some of the positioning of Power BI, and Henrietta is going to cover the technologies themselves, as well as taking you through the demonstrations. So I'm pleased to see some familiar names today for this webcast, as well as some new ones. For those of you who don't know Thorogood, we're a BI and analytics consultancy. We focus on business objectives, and we work with various technologies to help meet those objectives. You can see a sample of our partnerships on the right-hand side there, and the one that's most relevant to this webcast is our Microsoft Gold partnership. Because we work with a number of tools in this space, it helps give us a unique perspective on the strengths and weaknesses of each of these tools, and we do quite a bit of work around tool selection and strategy for many of our customers. We also provide full implementation across any one of these tools. We are a global company ourselves, and we work with customers around the world, and it's quite common that we work with consultants in each of our different offices on any given project as well. So why are we here to talk about Microsoft Power BI? Thorogood's been working with Power BI since before it was released in February 2014. More recently, it's been coming up with our customers across a number of topics, and I want to share some of those here. The first one is data visualization and self-service. We're seeing a lot of innovation in the marketplace around these topics, and a number of our customers are asking what they can do on a Microsoft platform, as they're also considering some other tools in this space. The second point is around BI content. A lot of companies have got quite a few reports, workbooks, and analytical applications that are out there, especially those that have got quite a few end-user authors. And it can, I'd argue, even within a technology, it can be tricky to find the particular report that you're looking for. And so there's an increasing need to organize that content to find what you need. And as well as that, there's some organizations that are moving towards targeting specific content to specific individuals. So think about the Amazon interface that suggests what you might be interested in. And the last point is around data management. Well, most of our customers have some sort of BI system or data warehouse, and those are still very necessary for the core information in the organization. But they're also recognizing that there's additional or supplemental information that either isn't yet in their data warehouse, or it might never be. It might not be that kind of rigid corporate information. And we're working with customers to recognize that this supplemental information is very valuable, and to find strategies around how to use that information. And so it's across these three topics that Power BI is either starting the conversation or it's becoming part of the conversation, which leads us to the webcast today. So what are we going to cover? We'll start by talking about some of the functionality that's been out there now over a year, and there's also some new features that we'll be highlighting in the second half of the presentation. So what exactly is Power BI? Starting at the top here, we've got the desktop experience in the diagram. That's accessed offline through Office Excel 2013 and the new Power BI Designer tool, which is currently available in the preview version. And there's quite a rich capability here around data sourcing and modeling and exploration. Moving down, we've got the online offering. This is accessed through Office 365 and PowerBI.com. And they both form part of Microsoft's cloud offerings. And here we find much more collaboration and distribution of that information. While you could technically use one of these or the other, they actually complement each other quite well, and there's some propositions we've seen that span both of these that are pretty compelling. In terms of the latest offering, there's been some preview or beta software released in December 2014 in each of these offerings, the desktop as well as the online one. And more recently, in March, this was expanded to be available globally to 140 markets. There's also regularly, on a monthly basis, new features being added to the preview version leading up to the official release. So rather than just talk through some of these, the best way to explain them is to talk through why we also show them. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Henrietta to go right into the demonstration.
As Ahmed said, I am Henrietta Forsen, and I'm joining you today from our London office. as we'll be taking you through the demonstration. I'm going to start off in a place that we're all familiar with, an Excel workbook. I'm going to be working with a data set from within our organization on loss data from an insurance company. Here you can see a traditional pivot table showing a snapshot of the data with incurred, reserved, and paid loss in different regions of the world. This entire data set is stored within our organization in a SQL Server Analysis Services database, and we will see how the various aspects of Microsoft Power BI can be used to explore and augment the data we have. To begin with, we will be looking at Power Pivot, Power Query, and Power View, which are available as Excel 2013 add-ins and are free to download with an Excel 2013 license. So we'll start off with Power Pivot. Power Pivot allows you to analyze your data by creating an in-memory data model, which can include hierarchies, KPIs, derived fields, and calculations. Once it's been downloaded, you can access it from the ribbon up here like I did. To view the data model, click on Manage over here on the left. Now we're viewing a data model I have already created based on the insurance data from the SQL Server Analysis Services database I described a moment ago. And we can also view this data in Data View by clicking on this button here. In Diagram View, as we're looking at it now, we see the connections within our data. Now Power Pivot has been around for a while, so I won't go into too much detail on it here. But if you have any questions, do submit them to us via the chat, or send us an email and we'll get back to you with more details. Now that we know the existing data, it would be quite useful to add to it, say find some life expectancy data and see if there's a correlation between that and health-related insurance losses. We can do this using Power Query. Power Query is a tool to search for data, both within your organization and publicly available data from the cloud, and allows you to import, merge, and shape the data you bring in. In the Power Query ribbon on the left, there are many different search options available. We can search online, which searches Wikipedia, from files such as Excel and CSV, from databases such as SQL Server and Teradata, from Azure Sources, which is Microsoft's brand name for its cloud storage, and from other sources such as Facebook. So let's search online and see if we can find some life expectancy data and see if there's some correlation between that and the health-related insurance losses. So now there are many results given to us. In fact, there are over 5 pages. So it could be quite difficult to find exactly what we want. I mean, we're given little previews here of the data, but still it would take some time to find what we're looking for. Here we can also see that there are some entries under organizational data. These are coming from the data catalog, where others in our organization have shared queries with the rest of us. This is a great feature of Power BI, as it allows the organization to manage and share queries internally, as well as certify queries by designated data stewards. You can see we've got 2 queries here, and this top one is certified, meaning that it's been quality checked by a data steward. So this looks pretty much like what we want, so let's use this one. Now we could either bring it in straight away by clicking on Load down here, or we can edit it by using this button here. Now as you see, we've got a row here for world average, which we won't have in our data set on countries. So let's edit it first and remove that row. So clicking on Edit is now going to take us to the Power Query data editor. And as you can see at the top here, there are many tools available to edit the incoming data, such as splitting the columns and performing calculations. Now we just want to remove a row, which we do by right-clicking, selecting Text Filters, and Does Not Equal. So then, for example, if there were many rows which had world average, they would all be removed. And then the transformations are saved here on the right-hand side. Now that we're happy with this, we can save the data and load it into Excel. Now that we have brought in the new data, let's join it onto our existing data model, which we do by clicking on Power Pivot, and then Add to Data Model. Now we'll see the new data set appear. To join it onto the model, all we do is connect the two columns which correspond to each other. So here we know that country name corresponds to state and territory. So now, thanks to Power Query, we've been able to augment our data with some ad hoc data we needed and found online. Now, rather than exploring the data using traditional pivot tables, as I showed you at the start, we can visualize the data more easily using Power View. Like Power Pivot and Power Query, Power View is part of Excel 2013 and is an interactive data visualization tool, allowing you to analyze and display your data in an intuitive way. So we're seeing now a Power View report I have created based on the data from the Power Pivot model. We've got three graphs, one showing the reserved, paid and incurred loss in the United Kingdom, one showing the reserved loss by country, shown as a bubble chart, and a split bar graph showing the incurred and reserved loss by year. And a nice feature of Power View is the ability to interact with data. So for example, if I click on one of the bars here, for example 2010, all the other graphs also filter down to only show the 2010 data, allowing you to easily interact and explore your visualization. So let's add a new visualization based on the life expectancy data we just brought through. So if I make this a bit smaller, we've got some space here. On the right-hand side, you can see the new data set being displayed. So if I expand this, I can bring over the country into the white space here. And then let's add the female life expectancy. And since the data is linked together, we can also select from our existing data. And, for example, the incurred loss. And now, rather than just having a table displaying this data, let's choose a graph and say a scatter graph. Now I can see a bit of a pattern here, so maybe this is something we might want to investigate further. And as you can see, we've now been able to create a visualization using both data from within our organization and ad hoc data we found online, using various aspects of Power BI and Excel. So that was all Power BI and Excel 2013. We'll now have a look at the new tool, Power BI Designer, which is currently available in preview mode, as features continue being added in monthly updates by Microsoft. It does not require Excel 2013 and is free to download. Power BI Designer allows you to connect to a range of data sources and edit the incoming data using the functionality from Power Query that I just showed you. So up here we can see the different data sources available to us, such as Excel, SQL Server, and many more such as Teradata, Azure, and Facebook. Now you can see I've already created some visualizations based on SQL Server Analysis Services insurance data. We've got two graphs up here of the paid and incurred loss by year, a pie chart showing the incurred loss by daughter company, and then paid and reserved loss by year. Now some nice functionality of a Power BI Designer is a bump feature. So if you've got two graphs with the same axes, you can combine the data. So if you click on one and drag it onto the other, bump, and all the data is displayed in one graph. So that's quite a neat feature. Now we've got some more space. Let's add a new visualization and have a look at product group. So rather than viewing it as a simple bar chart, we can use some of the new visualizations available to us. We've got some split bar charts, funnel charts, clustered combined charts, but what would be quite good for this type of data would be a tree map, which displays categorical data in quite a nice way, and it's a nice alternative to a pie chart. And in the same way as you could in Power View, you can interact with your data. So if I, for example, click on trade credits here, all the other visualizations are either filtered down to show only trade credits, or in the pie chart, only the trade credit section is highlighted, so showing what percentage of the total data it accounts for. So let's save this and we can use it later. So that's a summary of the features of Power BI available on your computer. I'll now pass back to Ahmed to talk about some of the customer use cases regarding what I've just shown you before going back to more demonstrations.
Thanks, Henrietta. So just to summarize what Henrietta's shown there, we saw Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power View. We saw them in Excel 2013, and we also saw the preview version of the software that's specifically for these Power BI components called Microsoft Power BI Designer. One of the things I wanted to highlight from Henrietta's demonstration is this data catalog, which enables managed self-service BI. So we noticed that when she was working with Power Query, she was able to search the web for certain components. But she was also able to search within her organization for Power Query definitions. And that functionality is called the data catalog. And this is something that doesn't get a lot of publicity at the moment, but is very important to a lot of enterprise organizations. That ability to share those definitions, as well as certain individuals being able to certify that a query is of a high quality, is really valuable to people. So this portion does include saving these definitions up in the cloud space, but it doesn't store all the data with it. It can store just a small subset with it. So there's less of a concern over some of the security elements. And coming down to the latest release here, particularly related to Microsoft Power BI Designer, and some of the things that are important here for the organizations that haven't rolled out Excel 2013 yet. If you haven't rolled it out yet, Microsoft Power BI Designer is free through the Power BI subscriptions, so that could be an option. And the other consideration is that a lot of companies only roll out the 32-bit version of Office for a number of different reasons. For example, there's a lot of other applications that might rely on the 32-bit version. But if you do expect to do quite a lot of data sourcing and modeling in Power BI, you've got the option to install Power BI Designer in 64-bit mode. Just get that little bit more power to help you with some of that work. So moving along, we're going to go right back into a demonstration to show some of this functionality. And here we'll be talking about some of the preview components from PowerBI.com, personal dashboards and mobile. So with that, I'll hand it back to Henrietta to run through these.
So thanks for that, Ahmed. And as you said, we're now going to have a look at the Power BI online site, which is also currently available in preview mode. Like Power BI Designer, features continue being added through monthly updates by Microsoft. So here's a blank dashboard before anything's been done. On the left-hand side, I have connections to my datasets, to my reports based on these datasets, and to dashboards containing visualizations I have selected from these reports and pinned to personalize my dashboard exactly how I want it. So let's have a look at the different data connections available to us. We can connect to Excel sources like tables, data models and Power View reports, Power BI Designer files, SQL Server Analysis Services databases, and others such as Salesforce. One thing to note about the connection to SQL Server Analysis Services is that this provides a direct connection to your on-premises database, which is great if you already have the data structure in place. And as you can see here, we've got the connections available to us from my on-premises data, SQL Server Analysis Services. So let's have a look at the dashboard I've already created based on some HR data. And these are some visualizations I have pinned to my dashboard here from my HR report down here. And as you can see, we've got a range of different graphs, we've got a map, a bar graph, and a very nice clear summary that could be very useful. So this box up here allows you to use the Q&A feature to search within your current data, and it uses natural query language to generate visualizations. So since this is HR data, let's search for the number of employees. And since this is just a number, by far the clearest way is to just print it out. So let's now search for the number of employees by year, so that would be the new recruits. So we're now given a visualization the system deems most appropriate for the current data in this case a line chart since we've got a time dimension. Now I searched for employees by year rather than new recruits, since both the words employees and year are names of dimensions within my data, so the way that I've named the columns within my data model, so it can be understood by the system. And the ability to add synonyms, such as recruits, to make the search more authentic for users, does exist in the functionality of Power BI and SharePoint, so in the Q&A, similar feature there. So this feature is probably something we can expect here too at some point in the future with more updates. Now if I like this visualization, I can pin it to my dashboard so I won't have to type out the search text each time. And I do this by clicking on this pin here. And it's now pinned back to my HR dashboard. If you're particularly interested in this Q&A feature, you can find out more on our website. And you can find a webcast from November which covers this topic in more detail. Alternatively, do feel free to send us questions directly. This is another dashboard, and it's of our now familiar insurance data, created using a direct connection to our SQL Server Analysis Services database. And we've got some summary data here on cards of incurred and reserved loss, incurred loss as a bubble map, and color-coded by region. And we've also got the annual revenue and incurred loss as a scatter plot. Now, as you remember, we just created a report in Power BI Designer using the same data. So let's bring it in. We do this by going to the Data Connections, Power BI Designer files, and then just browsing through our file system to find the right file. And then we connect. Now, as you'll see, we'll have a new connection created on the left-hand side, both under Data Sets, here, and under Reports, since we're bringing in a Power BI Designer report. So let's have a look at that. We're just waiting for the connection, since it's just been created. And now, as you can see, we've got the exact visualizations that we just created offline. And that's a great way how the Power BI Designer and Power BI Online work together. It allows you to create dashboard material even when you're not connected to the internet, and then upload it to the online site once you've got connection. And just as we could previously, we can interact with our data within this online report, and the functionality is exactly the same as that in Power BI Designer. Now, to add these visualizations to our insurance dashboard, we click on this pin button at the corner of each visualization. So let's pin all of these visualizations back to our main dashboard. And if we go back to the main insurance dashboard, we now have all the visualizations here, both that we had initially and the final ones. And then if we want, we can organize these however we like, move them around, and really personalize the dashboard to make it as useful for yourself as possible. So if, for example, one of these was the thing that you definitely wanted to see when you first opened it, you can move it right to the top. Now, Power BI Online also allows you to share your dashboards with others within your organization. So you do this by clicking on the Share button here. So here you can type in the email addresses of colleagues so you can share your dashboard. And then if you click on the Shared With button here, you can see the different people that you've shared your visualizations with, and then you can edit their rights and their access once they have access. So I'll quickly pass back to Ahmed for a short introduction to Power BI Mobile while I set up the next demonstration.
Thanks. So what Henriette is doing here is just setting up some software on a machine so we can see her interact with an iPad over the streaming video. And she's doing that to show a recently released iPad application. There's also an iPhone application that works with some of these Power BI components. And one thing that's really interesting and significant here is that the iPad application is the first native application that's available with this new Power BI preview software. And the reason it's significant is that since Satya Nadella took over as Microsoft CEO in early 2014, he's been much more open to cooperating with other vendors in this space. And we see that here with the iPad and iPhone applications being the first of their kind. So now we'll go back over to Henrietta to see the demonstrations.
Hello again, and as you can see, I've now connected my iPad over to my desktop using some software, which is why you can still see the mouse here. And then once you've downloaded the app, which you can from the Apple App Store, you can find it here as you can with all the others. So I select that. I'm now taken to the favorites page, which at the moment is blank since we haven't added anything to our iPad favorites. At the bottom here, we have dashboards. So if I click on that, we're taken to the range of dashboards that were available to us on the online site as well. If I click on the insurance loss dashboard, we're taken to the dashboard that we just created online. And as you can see, we've got all the visualizations that we created just a couple of minutes ago and pinned to the dashboard. If I want to explore some of the visualizations, I can, for example, click on the line charts. Using my finger, I can scroll across, and the little bar moves across with it. And as you can see here, we're given the exact values that are being displayed on this graph at any given moment, which is really useful when you're viewing a line chart and you want a bit more detailed information. To close this, you just click on the cross up here in the corner. So let's have a look at the pie chart as well. And in the same way as we did on the line chart, we're given much more detailed information here at the top. So in small, we have the actual value displayed by this segment, as well as the exact percentage. So we get a lot more information rather than just an overall picture as you would with other pie charts. And if I then click on the purple segment, it flips around and you can see the remaining information. So let's have a look at the map as well. And now I can use my fingers to move the map around and zoom in to different regions. So for example, here we have South America. We can also share snapshots of any of the visualizations we're looking at by clicking on this button down here. And so even further than just creating a snapshot, we also have options down here to either add emoticons, some text, or just to draw on it. So for example, we might be really interested in Bolivia and want to highlight this, so just draw a little circle on here with my finger. Once we're happy with it, we can click on the tick up in the corner. And then we have the option to either share this snapshot by mail, save it as an image, or to print it out straight away. We also have the ability to share the dashboard with others. So by clicking on this little icon up here in the right-hand corner. And here, in the same way as we could on the online site, we can share with colleagues. So by clicking on Invite Colleague, and then we can send it to several people by email and add some personalized text here. Next to the share icon is the favorites icon. And if I click on this, I'm now able to add any of the visualizations to my favorites. And we can do this across dashboards. So the favorites will really be a personalized go-to page. So let's take the map, the line chart, and say the tree map. And once we're happy, we click on this tick here in the corner. And since we can add from various dashboards, let's have a look at the HR dashboard. And we'll take the overall pay and the number of employees. And then if I go down here to the bottom and click on favorites, we're now taken to our favorites page where we see all the visualizations and charts that are most important to us. So from these demonstrations, you've seen how you can combine and analyze your data using Power BI and Excel to creating your own personalized dashboards online, which you can view on mobile devices anywhere you go over your mobile data connection. I'll now pass back to Ahmed for some final comments on how you can get the most out of these new offerings.
So that's all we have planned today. We'll be responding to the questions we've got through the webcast, and feel free to reach out to myself or Henrietta if you've got any other questions. And a recording of this webcast will be available on our website in the next 2 to 3 days, so you can revisit the content and share it with your colleagues. Thank you.